Hello, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Unspoken podcast. I'm your host, Sebastian, aka Rabid, and I'm joined by the GOATs. I was going to say the one and only, but there's two of them, so I really can't say that. Mr. Montana, aka Wildcard.
One of them.
And of course, Mr. Blake Spellers. Welcome back, brother. Hopefully you guys are having a great day today. What's going on?
It's good to be back, man. I'm glad to be here.
Did you just say one goat? Who's the one goat?
No.
He
I was gonna say the one, the only, like I did yesterday, but there's two of you, so I can't really do the one, the only. You know what I'm saying? So, but hey, man, football's back, baby. You know what I'm saying? Division talks. These next couple shows are gonna be just us talking about the divisions, breaking them down, what we think, and all of that. Today, AFC East, and this should be a very interesting topic, to say the least. Montana, kick us off for this episode 31.
All right, so we're going to kick it off with the runner-up to the AFC in the AFC Championship game, the Buffalo Bills, who won the AFC East last year for the first time. And I don't know if you guys have the stat, but they won the AFC East for the first time, and God knows how long, dethroning the New England Patriots, who were without Tom Brady last year for the first time in like 20-something years. So the Buffalo Bills went 13-3 last year. So, Sebastian, let's get some information about the Buffalo Bills.
Well, actually, I'll kick this one off.
Blake, you go first. Sorry.
Yeah, but to answer your question, I just looked it up. It's been 25 years since the Buffalo Bills had won the AFC East. So let's put that into a little bit of perspective. But to start, the Buffalo Bills went 13-3 last year. And Josh Allen showed up. That's really what happened. The difference between the Buffalo Bills in 2020 and 2019 was Josh Allen. And, of course, huge addition of Stephon Diggs. I cannot forget Stephon Diggs. But Josh Allen was really the big difference maker. He went crazy last year. He is the reason they went 13-3. Now to, the start, let's get into the 2021 season. And, even though the Bills were good, they still have needs. Every team has a need. They didn't win the Super Bowl, so obviously what they had wasn't enough. And for me, the biggest needs that I saw, they needed better defensive line and some O-line depth. So honestly, not too much. Most teams have more needs than the Buffalo Bills, but they still do need them. Now, to go into their free agency pickups, they got Emmanuel Sanders, which is going to help them out in the wide receiver. I see him probably being wide receiver 3, maybe even wide receiver 4, depending on what the depth chart ends up looking like. They got Matt Breida, also adding some running back depth, which is huge. And then they got F.A. Obata, a defensive end, which is going to really help because the Buffalo Bills need a better pass rush than they got last year, which honestly was the biggest downfall for them last year. We saw their pass rush not being effective, which is a big reason why they lost to the Chiefs. Now, the Buffalo Bills had a pretty good draft, though. I was not mad. Sebastian, I know you're happy with their first-round pick. Gregory Rousseau, D-end out of Miami. Dude's a beast. I love that guy. He's a freak athlete. He's going to probably – I don't expect him to start off starting for the Buffalo Bills. I expect him to, have more of like a sit-back role. They're going to play him for probably third downs to really get to the pass rusher, but I don't see him being a three-down defensive end. But I do think later in the season we're going to see him have a huge impact for this Buffalo Bills team. Now, going on from that, like I said, their D-line was the biggest question mark, which is why they answered that in the draft. Because with their second-round pick, they also got a D-end out of Wake Forest, Carlos Basham, another solid pickup. A lot of people had him going earlier than he did, but he did end up falling to the Bills, so credit to them for picking him up. And then also, like I said, they needed O-line depth, which they answered in the next two draft picks. They got offensive tackle Spencer Brown out of Northern Iowa, and then they got offensive tackle Tommy Doyle out of Miami, Ohio. Another two guys that I really like. Those guys are huge. They're going to be – I don't expect both of them to start for the Bills early on in the season. I think both of them will end up being backups, but I could definitely see them either through injury or just later in the season filling in roles for the offensive line. Now, aside from that, I'm not going to go through every single draft pick. That's a little redundant. We're going to go into kind of like what I expect the Bills to do this season. I expect the Bills to be winning the AFC East again, but I don't think it's going to be easy as it was last year. Now, I know the Dolphins had, 10 wins last year. They definitely competed with the Bills, but it kind of didn't seem like the Bills had too much competition in the AFC East last year in terms of competing for that number 1 spot. That's not to say the Patriots or Dolphins were bad, but I thought the Bills were definitely a clear favorite, the clear number 1 last year. And I don't think it's going to continue next year. I think they win the AFC East, but I think they're going to have more competition from both the Patriots and, again, the Dolphins. And even the Jets. We talked about this before the show. The Jets are definitely going to be a lot better this year as well. Now, going into their strength of schedule, last year they definitely had a tough record or a tough strength of schedule. They had the fifth strength of schedule, which with a 13-3 record, obviously it didn't harm them very much. But going into this season, which you don't really see if you win the division, you're expecting your strength of schedule to increase, but they dropped down to 23rd. Their schedule isn't overly difficult. I have them winning 12 games next year and finishing the season 12-5. I expect them to go 5-1 in the division. Their only loss in the division, I think, is going to be at the Patriots late in the season, week 16. I think the Bills ultimately sweep the Dolphins this year. I think the Bills also ultimately sweep the New York Jets. I think it's going to be interesting, though, if they play the Dolphins early, week 2 at Miami. I have them winning this game, but that game could also definitely go to Miami. Early in the season, it's hard to play in Miami. That weather takes its toll. I saw my Chicago Bears 3 years ago now. Oh my goodness, 2018, when the Bears were having their great season. They came into Miami hot. They came in, I think it was week 5. They were like 4-1 or 3-1, and they came in expecting a dub, and that weather played its toll. Miami ended up winning that game, and a lot of it had to do. Bears players after that game were saying how the weather impacted them a lot. They were dehydrated. They were tired by the time the fourth quarter came around. But that's not something we saw with the Dolphins players. I've been saying this for a while. The Dolphins' home field advantage ends about halfway through the season. Once the weather starts cooling down, that home field advantage kind of goes down a little bit. But early on in the season, it's not easy playing at Miami. It really is not. But I still think the Bills come away with that win. But like I said, could go either way. Now, going down their toughest games, I think, week 5 and week 6, they go back-to-back at Kansas City and then at Tennessee. Those are 2 very difficult games. As we know, the Chiefs are a very solid team. I mean, obviously, they were a Super Bowl winner 2 years ago. They went back last year, ultimately did not win. And then the Titans. Talking about a team that I still think is a big question mark going into the year. I'm not really sure what I expect out of the Titans. That offense is going to be lethal, obviously. A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, Derrick Henry. They have a solid offensive line. Ryan Tannehill's a good quarterback, but that defense sucks. And in my opinion, the Titans didn't really do too much in the offseason to answer their defensive question marks. They still, like I said, they added Julio Jones. They did a lot to bolster that offense even more, but that defense is still going to struggle going into the year. But ultimately, those are the only 2 back-to-back losses I have for the Bills all year. I don't think the Bills are going to really struggle for the rest of their schedule. They have after that they have a bye week. Then they play at home against the Dolphins. Then you play Jacksonville and the Jets. That should be wins as well. Those teams are going to struggle early on in the season. But ultimately, like I said, I think the Bills are going to win the AFC East again. And honestly, I think they're going to be in the AFC Championship again this year, but they're going to lose again. Now, I don't know if we really want to go into too much of other teams and whatnot, so I'm not going to say who else I have in the AFC Championship game beating them, but I'll leave it at that. Sebastian, what do you think about the Bills?
All right, so basically, I mean, you touched up on pretty much everything. Obviously, yes, I love the pick and Mr. Greg Rousseau. The man is what, 6'7", 260 something. Hold on, let me get these stats for you really quick in the sense of body type. 6'7", 266. And I mean, bro, I don't know if you guys watched, Hurricane football. Obviously, I did. This man was a freak of nature. Him and Jalen Phillips, which obviously we'll get to a little bit later, was a dynamic duo to say the least. Like I wanted Greg Rousseau, but for us to get Jalen Phillips, I was pretty happy about that. His kid is incredible. Like you said, I don't think he's going to start off rip. I think he'll develop very well in Buffalo. I'm glad that I get to see him twice a year is basically what I'm going to say. But then after that, they drafted my dog Boogie Basham. The man was supposed to be a first-round talent, ends up falling to them at 61. I mean, shoot, you can't be mad at that. The man had all the freaking hype around him in the sense of being a first-round talent, and to land to them in the second round, at that point, you just can't pass up on that. And then, like you mentioned, the Twin Towers, the brothers, well, not the brothers, but the Twin Towers of Spencer Brown and Tommy Doyle, 2 offensive tackles, one from Northern Iowa, one from Miami, Ohio. I mean, shoot, 166, 320, 168, 311 pounds. They both have very, very high upside. I think at that point, their draft was phenomenal. I think it's going to take some time for them to obviously, like develop and whatnot. But I think with their first 4 picks, they can't be, any disappointed or mad or whatever the case may be. So credit to the Bills for that draft. Moving on though, with the I guess free agent signings of Mr. I'm surprised that you guys didn't mention, I guess not Montana, but you didn't mention this, bro. The Bills got your boy. The Bills got the GOAT in Mitchell Trubisky. And you know what I'm saying? The man is sitting there as a backup behind my dog. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know why that wasn't mentioned.
Behind your dog.
Yeah, my dog. What you mean? Even though I'm supposed to hate the Bills, you know what I'm saying? What do you mean? Who's my dog? The GOAT quarterback himself.
Who's the GOAT quarterback? Josh Allen?
Who else would I be talking about, Montana?
You're saying that Josh Allen's the GOAT.
Well, no, obviously, it's an exaggeration, Montana. But I love Josh Allen. His story and everything that he's been doing off the field is incredible. The man has been hooping, developing. He's got beautiful weapons next to him with Emmanuel Sanders now, another person they signed, as well as obviously my dog, Stephon Diggs. Hold on. And the man, I mean, a lot of people hate him right now because he, stir up some controversy. But Cole Beasley, because, you know what I'm saying? You already know. You know what I'm saying? So, look, bro, they got reliable, bro. Hey, man, they got a unit. Oh, they also picked up Jacob Hollister. So credit to,
who's the running back?
They have a running back by committee, kind of.
Devon Singletary, but
they're still doing the committee crap.
Yeah, I mean, bro. They also picked up Matt Breida. Like they picked up 2 Dolphins players in Matt Breida and Matt Hawk. So I mean, look, they made a bunch of re-signings with Milano, Feliciano, Williams, and all of that. But I don't know. They didn't really need to do much, like Blake mentioned. So to get the depth that they needed, I think they have a really good chance. Now, this is a hot take, but I think we could see this Buffalo Bills team in the Super Bowl. Hot ass take. I get it.
Not even a hot take. I mess with it. I don't think it's a hot take.
I'm a stamp it right now. In my opinion, yes, I know the Chiefs finally got their damn O-line, that they've been in dire need of. But I think I'm going to stamp right now, that the Buffalo Bills or the Cleveland Browns will be in the Super Bowl. Stamping it right here, right now on this episode.
Okay. I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
I hear you on that. And I'll bring, you said, why did I not bring up Mitch Trubisky? Well, it's because I was talking about the key additions in free agency.
Nah, man, that is
I don't see a backup.
That is a key, bro. That is a key addition to the team, bro.
Now, but with him on topic, Mitch Trubisky is a great hard worker. Yes, he did pan out for the Bears, sad enough, but he is a hard worker. So for a backup quarterback, that's all you want. You want someone that's in there that's gonna push the starting defense, obviously in practice. He's going to motivate the guys. Everyone on the Bears loved Mitch Trubisky, maybe not for how he played, but they loved his heart. They loved his attitude, his work ethic, exactly. And that's everything you want in a backup quarterback. So, 100%. Yes, I didn't add him in the key addition because he's a backup quarterback. But, hey, yeah, credit to them for signing him, I guess.
Nah, but they did lose John Brown, obviously replacing him with Emmanuel Sanders. Tyler Kroft replacing him with Jacob Hollister, and Trent Murphy obviously got replaced in the draft with the boy, the homie, the GOAT, Mr. Greg Rousseau, as well as Boogie. So, I mean, look, the Bills really didn't need to do much, like I mentioned, and like you mentioned. But at the end of the day, I have them going, and I know this might be extremely hot of a take, but I got them boys at 14-3. And I know
that would be a crazy season.
It would be. The thing is, I don't see them like going down. Like I don't see them in the sense of losing more games. Like we can look through that schedule and just be like, okay, last season they went 13-3. You mentioned it. They have an easier schedule this year in the aspect of their strength and schedule. And so, I mean, the core that they have next to Josh when it comes to wideouts and just slowly building that trust in that O-line, that's kind of was an issue. I mean, their secondary and their defense has always been like, they're basically like a second version of the Patriots in the aspect of their defense have kind of been carrying them whenever Josh Allen struggles or whenever that offense struggles. You know what I'm saying? Like Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer are by all means like one of the nastiest
dogs.
I could sit here and praise the Bills when I'm supposed to hate them all I want. You know what I'm saying? But that team is just fire and phenomenal. I'm excited to just watch what they do this year. And so I don't see them, going down in the sense of maybe like a 12-5 or whatever the case may be. I really think I see an improvement in getting that extra win, especially in this inaugural 17 game season.
No, I know I have them going 12-5, which is worse than they went last year, but I think they're going to be better than they were last year. I know that's hard for some people to wrap their minds about because they have a worse record, but they do, even though their schedule overall is easier, they play some tough road games, and that's where I have them losing. I have them losing at the Patriots. I have them losing at the Buccaneers, and I have them losing at the Saints. And those are the 3 losses at the end of the season, and I think people can understand those are not only 3 really good home teams, well, those are just 3 really solid teams in general. I mean, it's hard to argue against the Buccaneers. They obviously just won the Super Bowl. They didn't get any worse. They got better. Tom Brady, we found out, was playing with a torn MCL all season. I mean,
I don't know how I feel about that. I think that might just be a LeBron James movement.
Yeah, it might be noise.
Of, just narrative, just a narrative to give him more of a GOAT status. You know what I'm saying? But
no, I hear you on that. But I think, like I said, the Bills are definitely, you said hot take for them to go to the Super Bowl. I don't really find that to be a hot take. Might be a little sizzling. It might be a little warm, but I definitely don't think it's hot by any means because obviously I have them in the AFC Championship game again this year, ultimately losing. But I definitely see them being a contender to win that Super Bowl this year.
So my thing really quick, and then Montaigne, you can just take over. So I feel you with the Buccaneers game. I have them losing there too. And you mentioned 4 games on the road that are controversial, but bro, I feel like they can win the rest of them. So fine, they don't go 14-3. They go 13-4. I mean, at the end of the day, I really think in my eyes that they can beat the Saints. I don't see why, especially with the questionable, we were talking about it before the episode. I personally do not like Jameis Winston. I don't like him as a quarterback, so I don't know what they're going to do. Yes, I know you were mentioning a couple days ago how Drew Brees, gave him the freaking nod and said whatever the case may be that he said. I personally just don't like Jameis Winston as a quarterback. He has never proven to me that he could be a top-tier quarterback or even a good quarterback in this league. I know he's had his moments, but I've never seen really anything positive from his game. So I don't think offensively they're going to do much in that game. So I think the Bills win there, but I have them losing to the Titans. As big of a question mark as they are, I have them losing there. I have them losing, obviously, to the Chiefs. They could potentially win that game, but I have them losing, and then I have them losing to the Bucs. That's 3 L's right there. Everything else I think they have in the bag by a mile. And so, I mean, sure, we could toss the Saints game and maybe give them the 4th L, but I think they have a very easy schedule, and there's really no excuse to not win this division.
I hear you.
I definitely have the Buffalo Bills winning this division as well. It's going to be the key thing for the Buffalo Bills is how Josh Allen is able to progress his game under offensive coordinator Brian Daboll, who is getting a lot of consideration for head coaching jobs this year, but unfortunately he did not get one of the jobs. I'm sure he'll be one of the top coaching candidates this year. I'm sure if the Chicago Bears flame out, we'll be knocking on his door really quickly at the end of that season if Matt Nagy can't get it done this year. But besides that, yeah, the defensive line is a big question mark against the Kansas City Chiefs last year. They obviously addressed some of those needs. Offensively, they got Stephon Diggs, the number 2, and Emmanuel Sanders. Hopefully, he can stay healthy this year. Because last year, we couldn't see him on the field as much with the New Orleans Saints. So let's see if he stays healthy. That's going to be another question mark for the Buffalo Bills offensively as well. Besides that, the Buffalo Bills definitely have everything they need. Sean McDermott's back as the head coach. They have everything they need to compete in the AFC. Obviously, looking at them, Cleveland Browns and Kansas City Chiefs, it's definitely a toss-up to see who would be in the Super Bowl, even though I already know who my pick would be to come out of the AFC. I'm not going to reveal that just yet. But besides that, we are now going to move on from the Buffalo Bills and transition over to the 10-6 Miami Dolphins. Sebastian, this is your respective squad over here in the AFC East. Some key storylines. Tua Tagovailoa enters the season number 2. He's got a lot more weapons to work with this year. Some additions like Jalen Waddle, Will Fuller. And then the biggest change on offense is now going to the dual offensive coordinators that they are going to have instead of the one that they had last year. I know there's a lot of controversy that they had with the offensive coordinators. So I believe Eric Studsville and George Godsey are going to be co-offensive coordinators this year for the Miami Dolphins. Sebastian, take it away.
No, yeah. I mean, you said it perfectly. Last year, in my eyes, this is the only reason why before the show we were talking about, the Dolphins' potential and whatnot. In my eyes, last year, I don't know if you guys watch Dolphins games, that offensive coordinator, whenever Tua was in the game, limited Tua to 3 type of plays and 3 type of plays only. But when Ryan Fitzpatrick was in the game, the man gave him the entire playbook. Now, is that a trust factor in which Tua didn't prove to that coordinator? Or was it just the fact that the man favored Fitzpatrick over Tua? And so now that, he ended up getting out of there and then we got the dual set in OC, I feel more confident in Tua's game and Tua's ability to provide for us and show us, exactly why we had that whole tank for Tua moment. And so, I mean, I'm excited to say the least, especially drafting Jalen Waddle at 6, having that Tyreek comparison. I mean, at the end of the day, between him and Will Fuller, if he can stay healthy, if our wide receiver core can stay healthy, I think Tua has no excuse this year. At that point, if he has a horrible year, I mean, I don't know what else to say.
Give me a stat line for him. What do you think his stat line is going to be?
Nah, bro, I don't know if I can give you a stat line because
really?
I know
you think your receiving core is so good? Let's see it.
Bro, I mean, then we could have. Okay, look. If I say a stat line, then you're going to be like, no, bro, Justin Fields is going to have a way better stat line. And so, because I remember correctly, now, I don't think you said this on podcast, but you said this at some point that Fields won't play the first 4 games, but when he comes in at the end of the season, he will finish with better stats than Tua. I don't know how you make that type of a statement. I don't know how you make that type of a statement when Tua's got the weapons that he does. And so, I mean, let me just continue, though, in the draft. We obviously got my dog, Jalen Phillips, out of the
You're cowering away from that stat line.
All right, fine.
Away from
I think Tua throws for 3,500, maybe 4,000. I think he has anywhere between 30 to 40 touchdowns. And then I think he rushes the ball for like a slight 400, 500. Wow. Is that valid?
That's a lot. I mean,
I don't think no, it's not. I don't think that's out of the question. I don't think you're being ridiculous with that stat line. But what you said earlier about the offensive coordinator not giving Tua very many options, I think it had a lot to do with Tua wasn't too not even that. He just wasn't too familiar with the playbook up until that point. And I think some of it was trust too. So like, how much did you trust? And I saw Tua said something actually. He said that he did not audible out of any of the you know how sometimes they give you like 2 or 3 play calls. He said he would not audible out of that 2 or 3 play calls that he would receive. So I expect Tua to take a huge jump this year, a huge jump just in terms of being able to audible out of plays. Obviously, the offensive playbook should be more open for him. I'm hoping at least. And I think, like you said, he has a lot of weapons. I don't think your stat line is too far off. It's hard to predict a stat line. It really is, which is why I don't think Montana, he was shying away as much as he was just unsure, because it's hard to determine a stat line for a quarterback. But
because like at the end of the day, you gotta think about it. Like Tua could have easily had more impressive in an aspect of a season last year, but the man had to deal with literally throwing to, like I mentioned before, 5'9" wide receivers. Because Gesicki was out for God knows how long. Devontae was out for God knows how long. Albert Wilson opted out. And so with all of like our big names being out, you have Jakeem Grant throwing to, who is what, 5'8", 5'9". Then you have both of our running backs as our only other options because Mac Hollins, they didn't have that chemistry just yet. And so you're basically, no disrespect, but you're basically throwing to no one in that regard, because also Preston Williams, I think it was tore his ACL or something like that. He had a knee injury that held him out. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, now there's literally no excuse. If we have every single player healthy, I think, it has to come down to, if we don't perform the way that we're supposed to with this firepower, is it a Tua problem? Or what error is it? Our O-line not giving enough time for Tua to throw the ball? We have to figure out exactly, if it does go down the wrong way, what the problem is, and kind of take advantage of that and figure that out. But I think this year Tua is going to have an extremely high and very impressive season, to say the least, which is why I have the Dolphins at 11-6, maybe even 12-5. But I mean, I don't see exactly anybody really, proving to me, minus the games that I think we haven't really talked about now, but minus the games that are obvious, better teams, I think the Dolphins are going to hold their weight in that aspect and make the playoffs, hopefully. Unlike your Bears, which we'll talk about another day. But
give me some those key additions of subtractions.
Yes, I was gonna go into that. I just wanted to keep talking about the draft real quick. Javon Holland, I think, was a really good pickup. It was definitely questionable, because we could have easily gotten Javonte Williams at 36 like we originally wanted to, but I guess we already knew exactly what we were going to do with Bobby McCain and let him walk. And so picking him up, I think he's going to have a very huge impact with his ability on the field at safety. And then obviously your boy, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but out of Notre Dame, it's Eichenberg. Okay, there you go. Liam Eichenberg, freaking offensive tackle out of Notre Dame. I saw a lot of praise coming from this man. I didn't really watch too much film on him, but going into that pick, once I saw that the little preview that they gave, I mean, I would hope to see our O-line, being a very improved O-line, to say the least. And then finally, Mr. Hunter Long joining Mike Gesicki next to him in the tight end room. Hopefully, he makes his name known, because a lot of people are saying that we could be running a dual tight end set with these two boys. So I mean, shoot, I'm not complaining in that regard. Now, when it comes to free agents and whatnot for the Miami Dolphins, obviously we brought in Jacoby Brissett as a backup, but I guess that's not really a key add. My fault. Will Fuller as at wideout, as well as DJ Fluker, Matt Skura, Adam Butler, and then re-signing Eldon Roberts, bringing in Jason McCourty and Justin Coleman at corner. I think those are very notable. I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to add when it comes to ads.
Malcolm Brown, I think, is an
I was going to mention
signing
that
at running back.
Shoot, I love our team overall, but that could just be me being biased towards my squad, I guess. I have a lot of hope. The only one that really broke my heart was seeing Godshaw leave and go to the Patriots. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's a business.
Didn't Kyle Van Noy leave also?
Yeah, but I mean, it's Kyle Van Noy. You know what I'm saying? He left the Patriots to come to the Dolphins to then go back to the Patriots. Go ahead. You didn't like it over here. I'm not going to disrespect you or anything. Do whatever you want. And then Shaq Lawson trading him away to ultimately get, I believe his name is Bendrick McKinney or whatever his name. It kind of, some of these people leaving hurts my heart. Matt Hawk too. But I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is. Next man up mentality. And that's pretty much all of that when it comes to free agents, key ads, and departures. All I'm going to say to wrap this up before you take over, Blake, is, I know maybe it's the bias to me, but with the weapons that Tua has around him and finally having a full year under his belt and having that dual offensive coordinators, I'm excited to see just how he grows and his playmaking ability and just how he proves himself to a lot of haters and a lot of doubters around the NFL world. And so with that, hopefully the O-line, gives him some time and the phenomenal defensive unit that we have. I think we do shock the world. I know Blake will say in a little bit his prediction, which was about 8-9. I'm going to stick to my 11-6 push. And I think we get the playoff experience that we need to grow. And that's pretty much that. I don't see making a deep playoff push, but I think we make the playoffs at 11-6 and just get that experience that we need to further improve the squad.
Yeah, I have my prediction as well as 8-9. I think that's exactly or 9-8. Was it 9-8 or 8?
No, I think you both had 8 and 9.
Whatever it is, I still think that the next team we talk about is going to probably be the biggest threats of the Miami Dolphins, contending for a playoff spot. So, Blake, go ahead.
Yeah, finish.
Okay, well, the first thing I'm going to mention is my boy Brian Flores. I have loved him since day one in Miami. I think he's one of the best coaches in the league. I was a firm believer that in his first year with the Dolphins, he should have won Coach of the Year, which might have been a hot take. They only won 5 games.
Let him know.
But here's the thing. When he was on that team, that might have been the worst roster in a football team that I've ever seen. Arguably that I've ever seen. That roster was full of no names that didn't even deserve to be on practice squads of most teams. But Brian Flores always got his team to play hard. He got them to win a bunch of games that I didn't expect them to win. They were projected 1 or 2 wins that year, pretty much all of year. There was a lot of tank for Tua. Who's going to get the first pick? Who's going to get the most amount of wins? But the Dolphins really weren't about that. Yes, there's a lot of talk about tank for Tua, but they were going out there each and every game trying to win. Now, with that being said, I think the Dolphins are going to be good this year. And I know that my record prediction, which I'll get into later, might not show that, but I still think the Dolphins will be good. Now, for me, when I was going through this roster, the biggest needs that I saw going before the draft and before free agency was wide receivers, edge defenders, and then O-line depth. But the Dolphins solved most of their problems there. They got, like you said, Will Fuller is a huge wide receiver option. And if Will Fuller stays healthy, what people don't realize is he's an arguable number 1 wide receiver. If Will Fuller is healthy, he puts up good stats. When he was with the Texans, he put up very good stats when he stayed healthy. Deshaun Watson loved throwing to him. He's a great down the field target. He's tall. He doesn't drop balls, and he is fast. If he can, obviously his biggest downfall in the league so far has been injuries. If he can stay healthy, that is a huge get for the Miami Dolphins. Now, you mentioned most of their draft picks and stuff, but they had 5 draft picks inside the first 3 rounds. That is huge. The NFL, the draft, I think the NFL draft is the most important draft out of any league in terms of NBA, MLB, hockey, NFL, every major sport. The NFL draft plays the biggest impact on the following year because most of those players are going to be playing big minutes going into the next year. Now, like you said, me and Sebastian kind of had a little argument before the show. I thought with Penei Sewell dropping to the 6th pick, I think they should have jumped all over him because I thought he was the best even though I love Liam Eichenberg as a 2nd-round pick, he's a great offensive lineman. I thought Sewell was by far the best offensive lineman in the draft available. And a lot of people had him going in the top 3 picks. He falls down to number 6. Personally, I thought with how stacked the wide receiver class was, I thought they should have taken Sewell and maybe drafted a wide receiver in the either late with the 1st round or in the 2nd round. But they didn't go that way. They drafted Jalen Waddle with that 1st pick, which I'm not even mad about. Jalen Waddle's a beast. I think Jalen Waddle is going to be huge for the Dolphins. I'm not concerned about his injury. He had 1 injury in college. That shouldn't be too much concern. People like to jump on that injury-prone line once one player gets injured one time, and that's what I hate. That is the biggest pet peeve of mine from NFL fans. People like to talk about how players are injury-prone after just 1 injury. No, for me, I'm not worried about Jalen Waddle's injury, but going into their other draft picks, Jalen Phillips was a huge get. Like I said, they needed edge defenders. They picked up that need by getting him. Javon Holland is a beast. I don't know if you guys didn't watch too much Oregon football last year, it's because he didn't even play. So that's another thing. But Javon Holland is a beast. I'm pretty sure it was Javon Holland who opted out of playing last year. It was him or someone else.
I don't know, but when they showed his like preview after he got drafted, bro, that man's vision, that man's ball hawking ability, his ability overall to just read the defense. I mean, read the offense is just by literally one of the nastiest I've seen from a rookie coming in. So I mean, I'm excited, 100%. Obviously, but that's a Dolphins fan.
And I did just look it up. He did opt out of the 2020 season, which is a big reason why he fell to the 2nd round. Because after his 2019 season, a lot of people had him being a 1st-round pick after 2020. Most experts had him being a 1st-round pick. But obviously opting out, that scares some teams away, which is why I think ultimately he fell to that 2nd round. But skipping over the Eichenberg pick, I love the Hunter Long draft.
Hell
I
yeah.
absolutely love that pick. I think the tight end class this year was very underrated in the terms of how many tight ends there were in the draft that were just extremely talented. Tight end's a position that a lot of people don't like to talk about because it's not a flashy position. But the tight end position is one of the most important positions in all of football in terms of offensive needs. Because not only do you need a tight end to catch balls, you need tight ends to also block. So now that you add Hunter Long to Mike Gesicki, who's another underrated tight end.
Mind you, Gesicki struggled early on and was like a bunch of experts were like, oh, he will never be able to be that blocking tight end that they need from him. He's always just going to be that down the field asset for the Miami Dolphins. So now he's been developing that. Now you add Hunter Long, who's literally, at least from what I've seen, a very strong blocking tight end. I think to pair him with Mike Gesicki, I'm excited to see the work that they put in.
No, I mean, it's a great pairing together. Like I said, Hunter Long's a beast.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, he's a great blocker. That'll be huge when you run those two offensive line sets because it'll keep the defense guessing. Are they going to run? Are they going to pass? Because Hunter Long does have hands. Yeah. Even though he's known to be a great blocker, he does have some underrated hands. He's not going to drop any. He's not going to make any crazy catches, but he's not going to drop balls. If you throw him a good ball, you can guarantee he's going to catch it. He'll eat a hit because he's a big boy, and he'll keep going. He will keep going. Now, moving on from him, kind of going with the record, Vegas has them over under at 9.5 total wins this year. And for those of you that kind of are confused with that half, that basically means Vegas thinks they're either going to win 9 or 10, and that's obviously the bettor's decision. So I think that's right around the right number. 9.5 is a good number. I think the Dolphins are really good, but their schedule, even though their strength of schedule is weak, I don't think it really shows for how much that like the teams they're playing improved. They're playing a lot of teams that might not have had a good record last year, but very deeply improved in the offseason through free agency and the draft. They just play a lot of tough games on the road. Now, obviously, me and Sebastian had some arguments. I'm a huge believer in the Giants this year. I think Danny Dimes is going to come out and have a really good season. That might be a hot take, but that's one of the games I have him losing. I have him losing
a hot take.
That's
what you said about Danny Dimes is not a hot take. That game is a hot take.
I have him losing a couple tough road games at the Saints, which obviously we know Sebastian isn't a firm believer in yet. Which is, I mean, I don't think that's very
Drew Brees under center. It's a completely different team, I think, and I don't trust Jameis Winston, and that's just the bottom line. I don't trust Jameis Winston. I don't see that man doing anything. And sure, like you guys were saying earlier, you know maybe they'll switch under center. You know maybe Taysom Hill will get some action or whoever that other random. And yes, I'm going to say it because I just to piss Montana off. But I mean, I just don't trust that offense when it comes to Jameis Winston's ability. Now, defensively, I mean, that team is that team. It's the Saints we're talking about.
I mean, it's fair. It's fair to say you don't trust.
I can't trust Winston. If I can't trust the quarterback, you know, I feel like the Saints aren't the damn Patriots where if, you know, they struggle, their defense will carry them. And so I think otherwise.
Now for me, I think Jameis is in the perfect situation. He had an entire year to learn from one of the GOAT quarterbacks, Drew Brees. And not only that, one of the GOAT offensive minds in Sean Payton.
Mm-hmm.
You give him an entire year to not only learn that offense, but to kind of learn who's on that team, what they like, what Sean Payton likes calling, and just seeing what Drew Brees did out there. When you learn from the greats, if you want to learn, you're going to. And Drew Brees has had nothing but good things, honestly, great things to say about Jameis's, not only his work ethic, but how much he just wants to learn. And maybe that got underrated when he was in Tampa Bay. He got LASIK eye surgery. Maybe he's seen a little better.
No, here we go.
No, that's just me joking around.
I'm just kidding.
They have a lot of weapons, though. They have a decent – obviously, Alvin Kamara is a beast. You've got Latavius Murray as a backup who can be starting in a lot of teams, which a lot of people don't realize. They've got Michael Thomas, which a lot of people hate on. But I think Michael Thomas this year might have a crazy year because guess what? They're going to start throwing the ball downfield more. That was the biggest downfall for the Saints last year.
Man.
They didn't throw the ball downfield.
Winston doesn't have that ability, bro.
Dude, Winston has a cannon. He has a cannon.
Bro, watch. He's going to throw like 25,000 picks. I'm telling you, bro.
Okay, that's the biggest thing.
Sean Payton's not going to put him in. he's not going to put him in situations that are not going to be beneficial.
Bro,
to
Montana, you
Winston,
gotta
bro.
understand. You gotta understand, bro. That man's a Florida State boy. I have no respect. I have to hate Jameis Winston.
Okay, that's fair. But that's been Jameis Winston's biggest problem has been inconsistency. He has games where he throws 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 picks, and he looks like one of the best quarterbacks. And then the
you have
next
6
game
picks.
he'll throw 5 picks, 1 touchdown. Exactly. If the Saints can get a consistent Jameis Winston, which I think he will be this year, the Saints are going to be a dangerous team because they will not only be better than they were last year, but they're going to be a full-on contender if Jameis Winston goes out there and plays well. Now, going back to the Dolphins, which is the main topic, I have the Dolphins going 8-9, which is no hate on the Dolphins. I just think there's a couple games in there that are going to be tough for them to win, but I can see them winning 10 games. I can see them winning 11 games. This team definitely has a high upside, and I don't think they have too far of a – I don't think they can go further than 7 wins. I don't think they win any less than 7. I think 8, even though I have them winning 8 games, that might even be on the low margin. I definitely see 10 to 11 wins definitely being reasonable. I don't think Sebastian was being too biased in having them win 11 games, maybe a tiny bit, but I think it's definitely reasonable. But like Montana said earlier, the Patriots got a lot better, and that is a big reason why I've got the Dolphins only winning 8 games and finishing 3rd in the division is just because, like I said, they got better, but I just don't think this is their year. I think next year is ultimately going to end up being their year because Tua is only in his 2nd year. That's a big factor. He is only in his 2nd year. A lot of times in the league, we see that 2nd or 3rd year for quarterbacks be that year where they have a huge increase in stats. If we're going through quarterbacks like that, we saw Lamar Jackson win MVP. Exactly. We saw Lamar Jackson win MVP in his 2nd year. We saw Patrick Mahomes win MVP in his 2nd year. We saw Josh Allen in his 3rd year go nuts. We see a lot of quarterbacks that 2nd and 3rd year is the make or break season.
I'm trying to tell you, man.
And that's what we're going to be. Hopefully, a lot of it depends on Tua. Does Tua break out this season? I don't think so. I think he has a good season, but I think that 3rd season next year is where he's going to truly break out like Josh Allen did. And that's why I think the Dolphins only finished with 8 or 9 wins this year. But that's no hate on the Dolphins. It's just not going to be their year, I don't think.
If
Montana?
wide receivers are really quick, if the wide receivers are healthy, I think Tua has the breakout year this year. If not, then I could see your point.
Very possible, though. Very possible.
There's still a lot of question marks on Tua's arm strength, whether or not his mobility is right since he's had that hip surgery. So Tua's definitely comes with a lot of question marks for sure. Obviously those weapons are going to help, but only time will tell how good Tua Tagovailoa is and the Miami Dolphins will be. All right, that's it for the Miami Dolphins. Now moving on to the 3rd team in the AFC East to finish at 7-9 in 2020, the New England Patriots. The first season without Tom Brady, they obviously hit a struggle. They hit a wall, obviously, with a bunch of departures on defense, opting out due to COVID-19. They had the number 15 pick in the NFL draft. They drafted their future quarterback with Mac Jones, quarterback out of Alabama. Obviously, they re-signed Cam Newton on a 1-year deal. So, Blake, how are we looking at the New England Patriots this year?
I like them a lot this year, actually. I think that the Patriots are going to have a really good year. And like you said, they had some players opted out that are going to be coming back this year. Dante Hightower, Patrick Chung, Marcus Cannon. Those are 3 starters. And not only starters, 3 very good starters that played important minutes for the New England Patriots back in 2019 that are going to be coming back this year. And if they are healthy, because obviously you opt out for an entire year. That's an entire year. Your body's not used to the regular season of the NFL. So hopefully nothing happens to them. But going on to just for the Patriots, I'll start with their biggest needs like I did for the other teams. Obviously, quarterback is a huge question. This is obviously biggest needs before draft, before free agency. Quarterback, wide receiver, cornerback, linebacker, and offensive tackle. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of needs, but it really isn't when you look at what they did. Now, going into the key additions for free agency, you got Matt Judon, who's a beast. You signed Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, both really good tight ends. You get Jalen Mills, beast. Oh, I shouldn't say beast, but he's a very solid safety. Nelson Aguilar, who broke out last year for the Raiders. If he can continue to do that, that's a huge get for them. like Sebastian noted earlier, Devon Goodchow. I probably just butchered that name. He was with the Dolphins, but he's a beast.
Shaw, you're good.
Kendrick Bourne is an underrated wide receiver. If he can stay on the field, he can put up big numbers for them. Then you've got Kyle Van Noy, Henry Anderson also adding to that defense. I mean, if you take away, you don't even look at their draft, just based on the money they signed in free agency, which is something we've never seen the Patriots do. And also the note, teams that spend the most in free agency, it usually doesn't necessarily translate well onto the field. But with the Patriots, I don't think that's going to be the case because they signed a lot of players that they needed that will have a day one impact. And I think, like I said, even though most of the time spending money in free agency doesn't translate necessarily to wins, I think it will for the Patriots. Now, going through their draft, they surprised a lot of people. A lot of people thought maybe they draft a quarterback late in the draft, but they went on and said, screw it. First round draft pick, Mac Jones out of Alabama. He is a huge question mark. I don't think he starts. He's obviously not going to start for the Patriots early on in the year. Cam Newton struggled a lot last year passing the ball. Obviously, he was a beast running the ball. You know how the Patriots love their cute quarterback sneak. Cam Newton obviously was a huge factor in that. He had a lot of rushing touchdowns, but they could not pass the ball last year. Now, that's not all Cam Newton's fault. The offensive line struggled at times. They kind of had it in terms of weapons to throw to, but now you add Mac Jones. I think that I don't think Cam Newton needed another fire to be lit under him, but Mac Jones getting drafted in the first round definitely adds another flame into Cam Newton. I expect that Mac Jones plays at some point in this year, but I think Cam Newton's going to have a good year. And aside from him, you got Christian Barmore, who's a beast. D tackle Alabama. He's unbelievable. I expect him to be a day one starter for the Patriots, and I expect him to learn from not only Bill Belichick, but also the veteran players that they have on that defense that have been there, that have been the number one defense in the league multiple years. Aside from him, you got Ronnie Perkins, who's a DN out of Oklahoma, who's a very underrated draftee. A lot of people view Oklahoma defense as a joke. They don't think they have talented players, but Ronnie Perkins is a very good defensive end. Aside from that, they got a bunch. I'm not going to go through every draft pick because I don't think that's necessary. They got a bunch of other good draft picks throughout the rest of the draft. But I think the Patriots are one of I think they improved almost more than any other team in the league. Maybe not the most, but at least one of the most in terms of who they got in the draft and who I mentioned as their free agents. And not only that, but then also those three players that I mentioned that opted out of the 2020 season. You're going to be looking at a brand new Patriots team. You're going to be looking at last year, that defense struggled. That is something the Patriots never really have to worry about, which is their defense. Most years they have a top 5 defense in terms of scoring, and I think it's going to be more of the same this year. I think 2020 was a fluke. I expect that defense to be top 5 again this year. Maybe not top 5, but I think they definitely will be top 10 this year. You've got Bill Belichick, who's one of the greatest minds in all of the NFL. You're adding a bunch of those pieces back. I think they're going to be really good. And a lot of people don't realize the Patriots had the number 1 rated schedule in terms of hardness last year. They had the hardest schedule. They were first in strength of schedule. Now they're down to 19th, which is kind of towards the bottom of the boat. So their schedule is definitely easier. Now, with that being said, I expect the Patriots to have 11 wins this year. I think they're going to go 11-6. They're going to finish second in the division. And what it comes down to, honestly, is what these teams between the Dolphins and the Patriots and the Bills is going to come down to how they do in the division. I think that's the biggest impact. I think maybe that's not much of a hot take. Division is obviously always important. But I think in terms of what team is successful, because I think the Patriots, Bills, and Dolphins all have a similar schedule. Obviously, they're in the same division. They're playing very similar teams. So how they play against each other is going to be huge. But I expect the Patriots to go 4-2 in the division, which is kind of a flip-flop with how I said the Dolphins will go 2-4 in the division, which could change. Obviously, you never know. The Dolphins could come out and surprise me a little bit. And honestly, it's not even a surprise. I said that the Dolphins can be good. But back on the Patriots, I have them losing to the Buccaneers. I have them losing at the Chargers, at the Panthers, at the Bills, and at Miami in the last game. Now, the Patriots are a great home team, which is why I don't have them losing too many games on the road or at home this year. The only home loss I have them losing is to the Buccaneers because obviously Buccaneers are your last year Super Bowl champs. I expect more of the same from them this year. They're going to have a great year again. But ultimately, I think the Patriots are going to make the playoffs. I think last year, like I said, was a fluke, and I expect them to finish second in the AFC East, only behind the Buffalo Bills. Sebastian.
Sebastian, before you go, I want to
Go
get.
ahead. Go ahead.
So looking at some of the, I think some of the obviously the additions they're getting back on defense, with like Dante Hightower and a bunch of those guys that opted out last year is going to be huge defensively. But I'm really interested to see how Cam Newton progresses in the New England Patriots offense in year number 2, primarily because last year he didn't have anyone to throw the ball to. And I'm really excited and looking forward to seeing how the New England Patriots redeploy that two tight end set that made them so good when they had Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski. They have very similar archetypes now with Jonnu Smith, who's very similar in size and speed like Aaron Hernandez was, as well as Hunter Henry, who's very similar, might even be a little bit better than Gronkowski as far as body type and being able to run down the field. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how those two guys on the field work together, and the two tight end sets that made the New England offense one of the most scariest offenses to defend. Because if you see two tight ends running down the field like that, you can't cover both. You got to cover one or the other. So that's going to be really interesting to see. Obviously, the quarterback controversy. Obviously, I do believe that Cam Newton's going to be a little bit better this year as far as throwing the football, because he's got weapons now, along with Nelson Aguilar. Who knows what's going on with N'Keal Harry. We obviously saw Julian Edelman retire. So, yeah, I'm really interested to see how the New England offense looks, whether or not Mac Jones is going to be able to take that starting job away from Cam Newton early in the season, whether or not that's going to be an interesting storyline to look at. But I'm definitely interested in seeing how the New England Patriots offense functions this year, because I do believe the New England Patriots are a lot better than we think they're going to be this year. I believe they're going to challenge the Bills for that division. So I'm really excited to see how the New England Patriots bounce back this year.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right when it comes to all of that. To my surprise, obviously I'm supposed to hate everybody in this division, but their offseason, moves were fire, to be honest with you. They're always, the Patriots are always a team that focuses dummy on their defense. So to add Judon, Godshaw, Henry Anderson, and company, I mean, it made sense. Now, for them to go as heavy as they did offensively with the additions of that two tight end set, like you mentioned, are we going to really see – it's crazy that you said that, Montana, because I put a question in here. Are we going to see that Gronk-Hernandez combo again, but with Juno and Hunter? And the roster has the potential to be great. Don't get me wrong. But I don't know personally how I feel about Cam Newton starting and ultimately Mac Jones. Is it, it'll just be something to watch if Mac or Cam plays the way that they need to. If that's the case, then I'll completely agree with Blake and that 11-6 record. But if Cam Newton pulls the crap that he did last year, and if Mac ends up coming in and not being that player that they need or they expected out of him, then I'm going to sit at the record that I had them being, which was 7-10. That's the minimum, though. That's the worst that I think the Patriots will do in the aspect of wins. I think their win margin or win, I guess where I expect them to be winning, 8 to 10 wins is where I expect them to finalize their year, unless Cam plays the way that Montana is, hoping that he does. Then I'll say 11-6. But in my eyes right now, because of the two question marks under center with Cam and Mac, I think it'll be between the 8 and 10 range. But some things I wanted to point. They lost Julian Edelman, like you mentioned, Montana. They traded away Marcus Cannon. I guess they replaced him, sure, with ultimately Trent Brown and whatnot. But I mean, I don't know exactly how I feel with that O-line. Yes, it's always been strong. You have Shaq Mason, David Andrews. I know. I was just going to say that. David Andrews. But what my problem is depth. And I just don't know with that O-line, if someone were to get injured, God forbid, knock on wood, I don't think they have that depth like they're accustomed to. And so I think if somebody does get injured, it's going to hurt them, because they also let Joe Thuney walk and go to Thuney, however you pronounce his name, go to the Chiefs and whatnot. So, I mean, just losing those three, as well as ultimately losing Adam Butler, but you replaced him with Devon Godshaw. Jason McCourty, you lost him to the Miami Dolphins, but you ended up replacing him with who the heck did they replace him with? Oh, I guess as a filler, if you want to really look at it, even though in an aspect you won't. I guess Jalen Mills, but he's your backup safety. I guess he could be your third string corner. But I just my problem is their secondary. Now their defense up front is always going to be nasty, but their secondary is a lot of questions. One being, is Stephon Gilmore gonna be in the Patriots uniform, to start the year, or is this man gonna do what everybody's been expecting of him to do, and whatnot? So the questions in my eyes are Stephon Gilmore, 1, 2. Patrick Chung retired. I don't know if you know if you knew that, Blake, but Patrick Chung retired.
Oh, he did. Yeah, I completely forgot about that.
So that replacing him obviously with Andrew Phillips was fire in an aspect, and having Kyle Duggar as a backup is notable too. But their secondary to me is just questionable because there's so many question marks as to who's going to step in, who's going to step up. Obviously, I love their defense overall, though. It's just there's so many questions in that secondary. Offense, to me, the only question is really Cam Newton or Mac Jones. Everybody else, sure, maybe they're wide receivers because we don't know what the hell's going to happen when N'Keal Harry. So it comes down to depth and if they really have that depth. But in Jacob Myers, Nelson Aguilar, who we ended up seeing, has potential, even with his notable of being the man, the myth, the legend when it comes to dropping goddamn balls. Kendrick Bourne, I love that man to death. I would have loved that man in a Dolphins uni, but just to see him play and have a new opportunity in New England is incredible to me. Hunter Henry is the man is just, he works his magic. And obviously my man out of the GOAT, I don't know if Montana wants to admit that, Florida International University, Juno Smith. Hey, man, that 2 tight end set is going to be interesting. To me, it just comes down to
Smith. Juno
Sorry.
Smith? What? Whatever.
Smith. Jonu. My bad for
he's really underrated as a tight end.
I love that dude.
It's really unfortunate the Titans really underutilized him last year.
Oh, 100%. I completely agree. I literally was going to say that, so I'm glad you mentioned that. But yeah, like this 2 tight end set that they have is going to be something that's going to be extremely fun to watch. It just comes down to, like I said for the 8,000th time, Cam Newton, Mac Jones, and their secondary. If they both of those aspects play good and play up to par, then I'll say 11-6. But right now, 8 to 10 range wins is where I have them at as my prediction.
No, yeah. One last thing, I definitely think if Stephon Gilmore doesn't. If Stephon Gilmore does not play,
random.
I completely agree with you on your take. I'd change my record. I have him, like I said, winning 11 games next year. But if Stephon Gilmore doesn't change, that would definitely change how I feel about them. I would have them probably that's a couple games right there that they would lose if Stephon Gilmore doesn't play. But so obviously definitely some question marks for the Patriots, even though they filled a lot of needs in the free agency and in terms of the draft. You still need a quarterback to go out there and play well, which we're not sure if they will. And secondary is one of the most important positions on defense. So if Stephon Gilmore doesn't play, who's going to be filling in for that production? I'm not sure. So obviously that would definitely change my record prediction. But I think that's all we have for the Patriots, unless Montana, you have something else to fill.
No, that's pretty much it that I have for the New England Patriots. So I do believe they're going to contend for the AFC East. With or without Stephon Gilmore. I know Belichick is a really good defensive mastermind. He'll come up with some kind of plan to mask the situation if it does come of that. They're really underrated. I think they're gonna bounce back and shock a lot of people this year. They're gonna win a lot of games they're not supposed to win, and they're gonna contend with the Buffalo Bills for the AFC East. It's gonna be a lot closer than we think.
That's a hot take.
That, I do believe so. I think they're definitely better than the Dolphins, and they're going to be right there with Buffalo. That's a hot take. Okay.
Yep.
All right. I think I have the Dolphins at 9-8, but whatever. Besides that, we are now moving on to the last team in the AFC East, the team that's in the basement, the New York Jets, who are 2-14 last season. Jets.
Now Blake. I'm gonna need you to start this because, bro, I don't even want to talk about these ugly Jets,
let me
bro.
finish what I was saying, bro.
My bad.
Obviously, some of the key things that happened to the New York Jets this year, they fired Adam Gase, so all the New York Jets can scream up in joy for that. They hired Robert Saleh, who I think is a great head coach to be the new guy leading the New York Jets. Obviously, they had the number 2 pick in the NFL draft, and they drafted quarterback Zach Wilson out of BYU. A lot of comparisons. He's a very small quarterback, obviously, but he's got the cannon of an arm. He's got the mobility to be a great prototypical NFL quarterback in this day and age. Obviously, they drafted an offensive lineman with I think it was the 16th pick. It might be less than that. From USC, I forget his name.
Elijah Vera Tucker. 14th.
I was about to say
Vera
Tucker.
Yeah.
And they upgraded a lot of offensive pieces as far as getting Michael Carter Jr., right? Is that his name?
I believe. I'd have to double check, but yeah, I believe so.
Well, they got 2 Michael Carters.
Yeah, Michael Carter the second, and then Michael Carter.
Yeah, they got Michael Carter running back.
They got 2 Michael Carters over there.
Michael Carter. That's so weird. Running back from North Carolina who torched the Miami Hurricanes in that one game. I believe, I don't know how many, it was like 200 something rushing yards he had. But besides that, obviously they added Elijah Moore. So a very good draft as far as the New York Jets go. Sebastian, tell me what they got in free agency.
Man, I don't really want to talk about these Jets.
You still want me to start?
No, it's okay. I guess I'll mention some names. Obviously, my dog Corey Davis signed a 3-year. They picked up Corey Davis. They picked up Keelan Cole, Tevin Coleman. That's my dog. I had to bring his name up. I don't know if you were going to do it, Blake, but
yes,
Tevin Coleman is my dog. He is a dog. I think I'll get into that a little bit later. Tyler Kroft, Morgan Moses, Vinny Curry, Carl freaking Lawson. I think was a big pickup for them. Obviously, franchise tagging Mr. Marcus May. LaMarcus Joyner also signed a 1-year deal. But they obviously lost some people in Mr. Sam Darnold, as you mentioned. Brashard Perryman, sure. Henry Anderson, I think, might not be as much of an impact of a loss for this Jets team.
They filled them. They filled in.
Yeah, they filled that. They filled that role for sure. And then Jordan Jenkins, but I mean, sure. I guess it's pretty much. They don't really lose too much other than their quarterback, which ultimately they replaced with Montana's favorite quarterback, Mr. Frickin' Zach Wilson. And so,
my favorite quarterback. Feels my favorite quarterback.
I don't want to hear that, bro. I don't want to hear that. All right, but so with this Jets team, I mean, yes, you've already mentioned their draft and what they did in the draft, and I just mentioned their ads. I personally I hated Adam Gase, and I think the only person here experienced a horrible Adam Gase other than the Jets can attest to that. Personally hated Adam Gase. Was very excited when he first joined.
You forgot he was an offensive coordinator for the Bears before he joined.
What did he do? What did he do bad for the Bears?
I mean,
he got the Dolphins to the playoffs.
Yeah, and
I was just gonna say, like, dog. I didn't let me finish. So at first, I loved Adam Gase and was huge on Adam Gase, but then as it slowly died down and we got worse and worse. And then we fired his ass, and then he went to the freaking Jets, and then I saw them get worse and worse and worse. I was just like, at that point, I'm just going to be on the zoopy and just hate Adam Gase. And so I'm on the train of Adam Gase is really, it is what it is. So for me personally, I love the Robert Saleh move. And obviously, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. So if I butcher it, I'm sorry. Mike LaFleur, whatever his name is. LaFleur. Okay.
Matt
Great
brother.
Yeah, exactly. Matt, that's what I was, So I think it's great praise and high expectation, especially with Tevin Coleman being there. I think Blake will touch upon it later. And so Mike LaFleur brings that Shanahan like ability,
heavy offense.
Yeah, the run heavy offense exactly and whatnot. So yes, they traded Darnold, but for me, my biggest question mark is Zach Wilson. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say this kid is, nasty, but I just don't know exactly what he's going to do this year. Now, this has nothing to do with what he'll do next year or if he develops to being a great quarterback, but this year in particular, I don't see. Now, they put a lot of potential around him, but for me personally, I don't see it working out just yet. I think it's going to take some time, especially with a new coach and all of that. So now if they prove me wrong, at the end of the day, they prove me wrong. But I don't see the New York Jets, Jets. I don't see them going over 7 wins. I think that's the max that I put them at and their potential this year. But I mean, they have a good team. It's not like I think Blake mentioned it to start the show. Everybody in the AFC improved one way or another. In AFC East, sorry, improved, and everybody got better. I don't think this is going to be a garbage division where it's just like, oh, you got the Bills and whoever gets that second and then third and fourth are, you know, in the freaking bottom of the totem pole and just suck ass. I think we're going to see a different division this year. I think everyone's going to, you know, prove their worth and prove their ability to win games. And ultimately, because my friend's a diehard Jets fan, I have one friend in particular. If you're watching, you know who you are. You know, I hope, because, you know, he's dealt with some stuff, you know, with this Jets team being so garbage. I hope they can somehow, either this year or next year, use this potential to get, you know, into that playoffs. But just this year's just not it. You know what I'm saying? So I hope I'm wrong, just so my friend can get some satisfaction and some enjoyment from the Jets this year. But, you know, it is what it is.
All right. Well, going off of that, I think where I need to start is Robert Saleh was the best hire that the Jets could possibly get. He gives me a lot of Brian Flores vibes, if I'm being honest with you. He reminds me a lot in terms of not only his defensive mindset, but just his mentality. And I think he's going to get the most out of his players, which is why he kind of reminds me of Brian Flores a little bit, because like I said earlier, Brian Flores gets the most out of his players, which is what I expect Robert Saleh to do with the Jets. And honestly, all the players love him from what I can tell. All the news coming from Jets training camp and whatnot, or how much the players love him, the kind of energy he brings. You know, not only that, but just like, and how much of a defensive genius he is. I mean, that 49ers defense was very good under him. Now, going off of that, the Jets were bad last year, very bad. Now, I'm a believer in Sam Darnold. I don't think Sam Darnold, it was his fault. I think Sam Darnold was just put in a very tough situation, aka the Jets and Adam Gase, which is just two strikes right there. I mean, you had no wide receivers to throw to last year. You had a very so-so offensive line, and you had a garbage defense. Let's just be honest. The Jets defense last year was not good. But this Jets team this year is going to be completely different. Not only because you have a bunch of different players, but because of Robert Saleh, that team's going to be coming out there every single game, and it's not going to be an easy dub beating the Jets this year. I think last year beating the Jets might not have been too much of a toll for another team that was good. But I think this year the Jets I think they're going to get blown out in a couple games because they're going to lack that talent. But overall, I think they're going to push and play really hard every single game because of, like I said, Robert Saleh and just the mentality that he brings. But going over a couple of their players, that offensive line did improve a decent amount. I mean, you got Morgan Moses, who's going to be probably their starting right tackle. I've got a lot of hope for him. You've got Dan Feeney, who they signed, who can be a guard/center. Then you drafted, like you said, Elijah Vera-Tucker, who's a beast out of USC, another offensive lineman. That's three potential starting offensive linemen right there, which will really help. Because what it comes down to, Sebastian said he's not sure Zach Wilson's going to have a great year.
That's adding to Mekhi Becton at left tackle also.
Exactly. That's what I was literally about to mention that. But yeah, thank you. But anyways, like I said, Zach Wilson, I think is going to be a good quarterback down the in a few years. I think he's going to be really good. He's got the arm talent. I think he's got mobility. He's smart. I think he can make the right plays. It's going to all come down to what that offensive line does and what those weapons are going to be able to do for him. And I think, honestly, they're going to do decent for Zach Wilson. I think he's going to come out and have a good year. Nothing crazy. He's not going to break any rookie records by any means, but he's going to come out and have a good year. I mean, Elijah Moore, remember that name. Write it down. He's going to be the best rookie wide receiver in the entire draft class. That's a hot take maybe by me, because there were quite a few wide receivers that not only were drafted before him, but then that were just drafted in the first round in general. But I think Elijah Moore is going to be the best wide receiver in that draft class, to go along with Wims, who is a very underrated wide receiver. He was a rookie last year out of Baylor. I think he's going to have a really good sophomore season now that he's going to have a quarterback, a decent offensive line, someone else calling play calls. Now, to go along with that, that defense is so much improved. Like you said, they got Carl Lawson. They got Sheldon Rankins, who's also a very, very good defensive tackle. Then in the draft, you got two safeties. You got obviously Michael Carter the second, not only the second, but the second Michael Carter they got. You got Jamie Sherwood, a safety out of Auburn, who's a beast. You got I mean, they spent their last, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Their last 6 picks in the draft were all defensive players. And I expect, honestly, I think most of them will not only make the roster, but also have day one impacts for the Jets. And I think you're adding those defensive players to an already decent defensive line. I think Quinn Williams is a beast. You've got other players on that defensive line that are going to show up. You're adding Sheldon Rankins. You're adding Carl Lawson as an edge rusher. I think this team's going to be so much improved. I think, honestly, in terms of the AFC East, the Jets probably improved the most out of any team, mainly because, I mean, they started so far down. They basically could only go up from where they were. But I think they really –
there was so many things that they needed to add and to be able to add everything that they needed and more. I mean, you know, getting rid of Adam Gase was the number one thing. And so that was step one. To replace that and then ultimately adding all these pieces that it did defensively and some pieces offensively. I mean, you know, I definitely see it. To me, it's just Zach Wilson. Is Zach Wilson going to be that guy?
100%. I mean, that's the biggest question mark, really, what it comes down to is what Zach Wilson's going to do. Now, ultimately, even though I've been praising, honestly, the Jets a lot recently with what I've just been saying, I think they're probably going to have only about 5 wins this season. I think that's what I have them finishing, going 5-12, just because their division's tough, for one. You've got 3 potential playoff teams in that division. So that's 6 games right there that are going to be no gimme games, obviously. You play honestly, the rest of their schedule is kind of hard, but they definitely have some gimme games. I mean, they play the Texans, who I think are the worst team in the league by far. I think the Texans, unless Deshaun Watson mysteriously plays, which I think even if his off-the-field issues are taken care of and he's allowed to play, I still don't think he plays for the Texans. So with that being said, I don't think the Texans, honestly, maybe this is a hot take, maybe it's not. I don't think the Texans win a single game all year.
Okay, that is a hot take.
I think they're going to go 0-16. They're going to lose every game. I don't even think they have too many close games. They might have 1 or 2 games where they're close.
Isn't Tyrod Taylor the quarterback?
I don't care who's the quarterback. Tyrod Taylor is throwing to nobody. Not only did you lose D. Hopkins and Will Fuller, now who's he throwing to?
Chill, man. They got
Sebastian.
Chill, man. See, I had no idea what this Texans roster was looking like. Bro, they got some notable pieces in Brandon Cooks, Randall Cobb, Kiki Cootie. Like, bro, come on. It's not great. They also got Chris Conley. Like, bro, it's not great receivers.
David Johnson.
But it's not great. It's not but he's still got somebody. You're acting like Brandon Cooks is a bum ass. Like, he's not.
Brandon Cooks isn't a bum.
Randall Cobb is obviously old as crap, but like at the end of the day, the man is still going to be able to contribute and do what he needs to do.
Cobb and Cooks are the same player.
But I mean, you're not wrong. That is very true.
Oh,
but
stop. Cooks is way better.
Cooks. Okay, but we're okay. Listen, Cobb.
But not anymore.
Was on the Packers. Cobb was really good.
But what Montana was trying to say is, like, if you think about what Cobb used to be compared to what Brandon Cooks is now, it's similar. They're a similar play style. Yes,
that's fair.
So I agree with that statement. Now, obviously, one's older, one's not, and all that. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, yes, I mean their defense is a little suspect. To say the least.
Little suspect.
I'm not going to bash on them yet. We're not talking about this division.
Fair.
So I'm not going to, you know what I mean? So it's a little suspect, you know? And they have some wideouts.
They don't.
They got my dog.
Listen, Cooks
at the end, listen.
MIA for 3 straight.
At the end of the day, they got the best tight end that they could have ever gotten in the damn draft in Brevin Jordan, bro. So all I know is that you are not going to disrespect the GOAT tight end in Brevin Jordan, Montana.
There was only one GOAT tight end in that draft.
Watch your mouth. Watch your mouth.
Kyle Pitts.
Watch your mouth. Watch your mouth. All right. Now, he might have been put in a horrible situation in Houston, but watch
to say
your
the
mouth.
Least horrible.
Watch your mouth. All right, Montana.
We're not talking about the Houston Texans. Why are you going so crazy about the Houston Texans right now?
I love every University in Miami team or player. All right, back to what I was saying though. 5-2 is. I'll agree with you. That's exactly what I have. The Jets going. Like I'm sorry, I said 5-2. 5-12.
No, you're good. I know what you meant.
I got riled up. 5-12, yeah, absolutely. You know, I completely agree. Like I said, though, 7 is their max. I don't see them going anywhere higher.
Oh, no,
I don't see them going anywhere lower than 5. I think 5 to 7 is the range. I think their minimum L's is 5. Their max is 7. They have too much potential to go if they go 4-13, at that point, there's a lot of questions because if they don't win 5 games, I'm gonna be shocked.
See, here's the thing.
Like
talking
4
to
wins would
all
be a
Jets
successful
fans,
season for me.
I don't
talking
think
to
that's a
all
successful
Jets
thing
fans,
though.
talking to all Jets fans out there, I don't think. Yes, obviously you win 4 games out of 17. It's hard to be happy, but I don't. You shouldn't be mad as long as they come out, and I expect them to do this and compete in every single game. That's going to be the biggest difference maker from
True.
last year. The Jets last year, they didn't show up for a lot of their games. They didn't really care to win. It didn't seem
Nobody
like
did.
they gave up on their coaches. It seemed like at certain points in the season. I don't expect that to happen this year. I do think that they're very capable of only winning 4 games, but I think they're going to compete and they're not going to get blown out in too many games this year. Yes, they still have the potential to get blown out in a few games. They play a couple tough games on the road, but I think they're going to come out and they're not going to be an easy win like last year. Last year, the Jets really, honestly, I don't want to say it was a bye week when you played the Jets, but
Stop
if
it.
you
Say
were
it. Say it.
if
say
you
it,
were a
say
good
it,
team last
say
year, it was
say
a
it.
bye week when you played the
Damn
Jets.
right. Damn right.
It was a bye
Respectfully
week.
so. Respectfully so.
No, and that's no hate on Sam Darnold because I think
At
Sam
all.
Darnold for the Panthers this year. I don't want to get too much into it because we'll talk about them later on in a different and on a different day. But Sam Darnold's going to do good things for the Panthers.
100%.
But with that being said, like I said, the Jets are going to go about 5-12 this year. Sebastian kind of agrees with me. I'm sure Montana's record prediction's not too far off of 5 wins either.
One thing I do want to say though, now the difference between a 4-12 and a 4-13, like if they do that, right? If they go 4 or 3 and whatever the case may be, it depends on the way that it happens.
That's
If
what
it's
I'm
like
saying,
if it's
100%.
like the Miami Dolphins year 1 with Brian Flores, in the aspect of continuously like basically you won your players over by the trust factor, wanting to go out every single game, just give everything you had. Yes, there were mistakes that happened, but you gave everything that you could possibly give on that football field. If that's what we see, and they won the coach's heart and or the trust between the players and the coaches, like the Miami Dolphins did year 1, as poorly as we played. If that's how they play this year and they only win 4, then that's respectable, and that's a completely successful year, no matter how many wins they get. If it's like that, but
I 100% agree. 100%
I think between 5 and 7 is the range. If they go any lower, it has to be the way that the Dolphins did, where the players love Robert Saleh and trust that entire coaching staff, and there was just unfortunate situations that happened in game time that led to them losing, whatever the case may be. But as long as they get that trust factor, that ability to really build around their young core and whatnot, I think then that's a successful year.
No, yeah. I mean, the last thing, what I would kind of want to finish off, I think we might be about done with this after this. But I think the last thing I want to say is, as long as the Jets, you kind of just touched on it, constantly improve. As a Jets fan, that's really all you need to see. If the Jets are constantly improving every single week, because they're a young team. When it comes down to it, they're just a really young team. They've got a lot of question marks. We're not sure how well they're going to play because they've got a lot of players that are, like I said, young in terms of, they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They had 10 draft picks. 10 draft picks. You've got 10 rookies coming in, and a lot of them are going to be getting a lot of playing time in their first year, which isn't always expected when you have that many guys coming in. But like I said, as long as the Jets come out, and you kind of touched on it with gaining trust between coaches and players, that's a huge thing. And I think Robert Saleh's ultimately going to win over this team. And even if they only win 4 games, as long as they see a better team in the last game than they did in the first game, that's kind of all you can ask for. Because realistically, even if you are a Jets fan, you don't see them making the playoffs. I don't even think there's a scenario. The best case scenario, they don't make the playoffs this year. Like, that's just ultimately what it's going to come down to. You're in a tough division. You have 3 teams that could potentially make the playoffs in that division. The Jets just sadly aren't one of them this year. But I think a few years down the line, we could see this Jets team maybe make the playoffs because they did everything right. Even like I said at the beginning, they couldn't have gotten any worse than they were last year. They had a bottom roster. They had a bottom coaching staff. So obviously they could only improve from last year to this year. But they did more than that. They had a really good draft. They had a really good free agent signings. They have a lot of money for upcoming years. They have a lot, and they made the right coaching hire. That's a huge thing. You got to hire the right coach that's going to bring the right mentality. So the Jets did everything right in the offseason. They didn't really do anything wrong in terms of who they got in coaching and players. So like I said, as long as they have a better team week 7 or week 18 than they did week 1, that's all I can look for as for the Jets this year.
Yeah, for sure. As far as the New York Jets go, I do agree. Somewhere around 4 to 7 wins is the range. I think any of that range is, in my opinion, would be a successful season for the New York Jets, considering what they've been through the last couple of years with Adam Gase as the head coach. As long as they play competitively and they lose these games, but they lose them close, that's a win for your. If you're a Jets fan, that's a win because you're seeing your team play hard, and that's what you want to see from a new coaching staff. A lot of new players are coming in. It's a new culture that's being set up in the Jets organization. And hopefully, it's going to be that does them dividends for the future of the AFC. Because I believe in the future, we're looking at this division thinking, man, this division could be one of the best divisions of football. You got Josh Allen, the quarterback of the Bills, Zach Wilson, the quarterback of the Jets, Tua, the quarterback of the Dolphins, and Mac Jones, the quarterback of the New England Patriots, or Cam Newton. That could be one of the scariest divisions of football. And that could be one of the toughest divisions of football. That could be a division that we're looking at right now with the NFC West, where all 4 teams are going to be really good in that division. Where I think in the AFC North with the Bengals, this team is really underrated. That could be making some noise in the AFC North division. Obviously, the Ravens, Steelers, and Browns. So that's definitely another division that's going to be really good this year. So we could be looking at this division like those divisions very soon, and it's definitely possible. I think the most exciting game on the Jets' schedule is a home game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, the number 1 pick, Trevor Lawrence, against the number 2 pick, Zach Wilson. That's going to be a really intriguing matchup on that schedule. So that's going to be fun to watch for sure.
The dub for the Jets.
So there's definitely, I don't know, man. The Jaguars are gonna shock some people this year. I think Urban Meyer is no slouch, bro.
I got like 2 wins on the Jags.
No way, bro. No way. We'll get to that.
Hey, we'll get into them later.
Yeah. But besides that, anything else you guys want to add to the AFC East before we sign off?
Fins up, bro. Fins up.
Obviously, we'll get to our playoff predictions in a later show. Which teams make the wild cards? Obviously, there could be 2 teams from this division that make the playoffs. So we'll see on that note when we get to that episode down the line. But besides that, if you guys haven't already, follow on Apple and Spotify at Unspoken Rules. Leave a rating and review. If you guys are watching on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video, leave a comment in the comment section. We got a lot more division previews coming up real soon to the Unspoken Rules channel. Obviously, training camp starts next week, so we're excited to have football back in full swing. I'm Montana. You guys can find me on Instagram, Twitter, at Wildcard Movies. Sebastian, where can they find you?
Rabbit FL everywhere.
Blake, where can they find you?
They can find me at Blake Spillers on everywhere.
Alrighty. This is going to be it for Unspoken Rules number 31, our AFC East preview. We will see you guys later. Peace.
See you guys.